very good results, particularly at the high school level on MCAS, SATs. We're very proud of all of those indicators. We're just concerned that if we start this slope of cutting down into programs and services at the level that next year's proposed cuts go, and then the following year when we have to, again, because we have this structural deficit, when we have to cut beyond that, we're getting increasingly more concerned about what will be available for students in terms of the kinds of quality programs that will allow us to continue with these results at the level that they are. So why don't we take our question, Terry, and then we'll...
Our first question is it true that without the override, families in the middle school and high school could pay more in fees than they would in their property tax for the override? And I'm just going to ask for a clarification. I think you mean the property tax increase that's related to the override. Thank you. The answer to that is yes. The average or median home value, I guess, according to the town administrator, is approximately $377,000 in the town of Georgetown. And to pay for the $1.2 million override, it would be just under $400, excuse me. And there is, by the way, I should point out, there is now a tax calculator on the town's website. So you can go to the town's website and you can actually put in your property value and the value of the override, and you can see actually what you would pay based on your property value if the override were to pass. But if you take that just under $400 or $100 a quarter, you're talking about paying for a middle school student probably $505 for one sport. So if they participate in more than one sport, they're going to pay $505 for each sport. That's just at the middle school level. At the high school level, they will pay $585 per sport. Okay, and again, that's per sport, and there's no family cap. So it is conceivable if you have two children who play two sports apiece, let's be conservative about this, that you're going to pay close to $2,400 in athletic fees for two children to pay two sports, when an override would have actually reduced your obligation that you would have.
And what about the bus fee?
The bus fee would be totally new. The bus fee, basically a quick explanation of state law. State law requires that the district only transport students K through 6 who live 2 miles or more from the school they attend. So that means that grades 7 through 12, every single student who wants to ride the bus can be charged a bus fee. The bus fee would probably be in the vicinity of $200 per student. Again, I can't speak for the committee on this. They still have to, if indeed it comes about that the override doesn't pass, they're going to have to look at their policy, but there may not be a family cap for this. And if you have elementary students who live less than 2 miles from the school, then those students also could be obligated to pay a $200 bus fee.
So if you have any questions, the number's on the bottom of your screen, as is Terry's email. We'd love to hear from you. We do actually have one other question, which probably we should take now.
Okay, the question is, there is talk that by the start of school in September, the 9th grade class will be losing a number of students. Will that potential loss of enrollment affect our state aid? It will not affect our state aid next year, but it will affect the state aid in the following year. State aid is based on a couple of different factors. One of them is, however, enrollment in the previous year. And I believe it's every October 1st. We have to file an enrollment with the state. That's the enrollment that's used as part of the calculation for state aid for the ensuing year. So yes, if we lose students, then we will lose state aid in the following year.
I think the other thing that we should just point out there is, depending on if this talk is true, and the members of the 9th grade class leave to go, for example, to school choice. Obviously they would have an option perhaps to go to private school, which, as Terry just explained, would have that effect on state aid in another year. But the other option for students is to enroll in the state school choice program. Some districts in the state do not participate in school choice. Georgetown is a school choice district. So we have taken students. One of the things you can't stop is you can't stop students from leaving the district to go to another school district that does allow school choice, students to come for school choice. If a student goes to another district for school choice, the town of Georgetown is actually assessed funds for that. So that's a cost to the town that the town will not have budgeted for. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Rumor is that the school could be combining with Triton or Masco if you don't get an override. Is that true? I will let you.
Well,
I can answer that, but I will let you answer that.
Well, we'll try together. That is a rumor, as far as I know. I know from the history of Georgetown, based on what I've been told, is that at the time when Triton and Masco were formulating their regions, Georgetown was invited to participate in not only those two, but also the development of the Pentucket Regional School District. In each case, what I was told is that the town of Georgetown voted or decided not to participate in becoming part of a regional school district. I know that regionalization is something that the state has asked districts to look at, particularly small districts. And I know some districts are taking parts of districts, like taking like an assistant superintendent position and having 2 or 3 districts participate in something like that, or doing some more regionalization of some internal operational things. But to my knowledge, right now, Georgetown has not been invited to discuss joining Triton or Masco, and has not initiated that. Terry, what would you add to that?
Well, the only thing I would add to that with any kind of regionalization proposal is that Georgetown right now is 3rd from the bottom in the state in per pupil expenditures. That means that virtually everybody who we might regionalize with spends more per pupil than we do. It is entirely possible, and I would even go so far as to say probable, okay, that it would cost you far more than the $1.2 million override to join with another district, because they are spending so much more per pupil and they are providing so many more services. So it would not be a cost savings necessarily to join another district at this point.
Right. As a former superintendent of a regional school district, based on whatever regional agreement we would come up with if we were to regionalize, the town would be given an assessment, as opposed to right now, we work with the towns. We work with the town. The town actually, gives us a number, and we hit the number. Whereas in a regional school district, there's an assessment based on minimum contribution, and that number generally runs higher than what increases Georgetown's been receiving from the town of Georgetown for the last several years.
And just one other thing, those formulas usually, again, they typically are there's a couple of different factors that go into the formula. One is the number of students, but another is where you are on the aggregate wealth index. Mm-hmm. Georgetown is relatively high. So though we would certainly be attractive to a number of communities to join for that reason, but again, that would mean that in all likelihood, our share of a regional is going to be somewhat higher because of the value of the identification by the state of Massachusetts of the wealth of the town of Georgetown. Mm-hmm.
And if regionalization is something that the town would like to, begin conversations with, that's certainly something that, could happen. But that process would have to be started, and it isn't in the works for the FY12. So it has no impact at all on the proposed override.
Generally speaking, regionalization plans take, I would say, 18 months to 2 years to really come to fruition.
Okay, so why don't we, again, call if you have a question. Terry, why don't we continue? Did you want to show the graph?
I can show the graph if you would like. I skipped over it, but this is just very quickly a graph that shows the net school spending history in Georgetown. And it's kind of hard to see with our number there, but if you look just about in the middle, of that graph. This is a graph from 1993 to 2010. Just about in the middle is year 2002. And we were spending just under 20% more than the net school spending requirement. And you can see the diamond line is the actual spending. You can see that at the very end, in 2010, we are actually slightly below required net school spending. That's the dotted black line. And that tall striped line, if you will, it's hard to see probably on your television, I apologize, okay, is the foundation budget. And our spending is significantly below the foundation budget. So the history has been that back in 93, when net school spending, when net school spending in Chapter 70 was implemented, we were a little bit below, but we made efforts in Georgetown to the point of where, again, in 2001, 2002, we were spending significantly above net school spending. And then since 2002, that gap has closed until the point where now we are not meeting our net school spending requirement.
Okay, great. Okay, so people have asked us, so what will happen if the override fails? I think that many people in town have been around long enough and, have lived through the days when they believe that, and probably rightly so, Terry and I don't own that history, that somehow the schools will find the money. That, it's somehow, we're saying we're gonna cut these things, but somehow we'll find the funds. And, both Terry and I and this current school committee, have been very transparent in what we're doing with the budgets, at least over the 4 years that we've been here. And I'm sure before that, knowing some of the committee members that have been on, on the school committee prior. But it is really important to remember here that we have a few things we're trying to address. One is we are on accreditation warning. Accreditation warning for one standard only. The good news is, out of the 7 standards, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, when they came and visited Georgetown, had a lot of commendation for the programs and services that were provided in 2006 in the area of curriculum, instruction, assessment. They felt that the leadership was strong at the school. They felt that there were some internal resources to help students who needed to have additional assistance. But the one standard that they found that we were deficient in meeting was standard number 7, which is community resources for learning. And the problem was twofold. One is the visiting team, after interviewing parents and community members and students and staff and administration and walking the building and reviewing self-studies, it was quite, it's quite an intense and in-depth process when you do a whole year of self-study before a visiting team even comes to your site. They look at, it's very comprehensive, they look at all kinds of things, and what they determined was, first, that the building was not of sufficient size for the number of students who were being educated there. That there were a number of areas that where, for example, just a quick one, our music teacher, our choral music teacher teaches on the stage. They consider that unacceptable because she should be working in a classroom sufficient, for the programs that she's offering. That's just one. The gym is too small. The bleachers are too close to the court. In order to solve that problem, we would have to replace the bleachers at the very least. There are a number of those kind of issues. And one of the things that we've proposed with the Pembroke project that we're doing the feasibility study on right now, that if there's a project, either an addition, a renovation, a new building, if the community supports something happening at Pembroke School, the goal would be to move the 6th grade students to that new facility, allowing there to be additional space for the programs to expand. So and the second issue was the lack of steady and sustainable funding source for the school, again, to provide the kind of programs that are identified in these standards, which are the same standards that are applied across the whole New England region. The public high school, every public high school in the state of Massachusetts is accredited by this agency. So they're reputable.